Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really complex issue, how the very same technology that's being used to save lives in a crisis could also be turned into a weapon against the most vulnerable people on the planet. This is the modern aid dilemma.
I mean, on the surface, the mission seems so straightforward, right? When people are in crisis, whether they're fleeing a war or hit by a natural disaster, the goal is just to help, to provide the basics: food, shelter, safety. Simple, noble.
But here's the twist. This is the massive question facing every single aid organization right now. In our totally connected world, the data that makes helping people faster and more efficient can be a double-edged sword, one that could be used against the very people we're trying to protect.
So, to really get our heads around this problem, we've got to understand that there's been a huge shift in the aid world. Just having good intentions, it's not enough anymore. Modern aid demands proof. It demands rigorous, hard-nosed evaluation.
It's no longer okay to just do good things. Organizations now have to prove they're doing good. They use these really systematic evaluations to answer some tough questions, like, are we actually reaching the right people? Is what we're doing making a real difference? And are we being accountable not just to our donors, but to the communities we're there to serve?
Now, this slide shows a really key concept they use called the S-curve of quality. The best way to think about it is like building a house. All your most important decisions, the foundation, the blueprint, they happen right at the very beginning. The further along you get, the harder and more expensive it is to make a big change. It's the same thing here. Your best chance to get a great result is at the start. You've got to plan it right from day one.
Okay, so this need for solid data and proof, well, it got a massive boost from a full-blown technological revolution. Digital tools have completely changed the game, transforming the speed, the scale, and the precision of humanitarian aid.
And this has created an incredible new toolkit. We're talking about biometrics like iris scans to make sure aid gets to the right person. Drones that can map an earthquake zone in a few hours, something that used to take weeks. Digital cash that gives people the dignity to choose what they need most. And even AI that can help predict where the next crisis will hit. It's a massive game changer for efficiency, no question.
But here's the turn. Because every single piece of that data, every fingerprint scanned, every GPS coordinate logged, every single name on a list, it creates a brand new risk for people who are already in an incredibly vulnerable position. Let me give you a real-world example. Say an aid group collects data on families to figure out how much food to give them. A good goal, right? But what if that same list of names and family details in the wrong hands reveals someone's ethnicity or religion? In a conflict zone, a list meant to deliver food could become a hit list. The very data intended to save lives could be used to end them.
Now you're probably thinking, well, just make the data anonymous. If only it were that easy. See, even when you strip out names and addresses, data can often be pieced back together. It's called re-identification. You take one anonymous data set, cross-reference it with other public info, like a voter roll or even social media, and boom, you can figure out exactly who is who, completely destroying their privacy.
And get this is a perfect example of the hidden danger. When someone receives aid through a mobile cash transfer, it's not just a simple transaction. It creates a trail of metadata. And that trail can be followed, from the phone company to a government finance unit, and maybe to a state security agency. All of this can happen without the person ever knowing they're being watched.
And look, this isn't just some hypothetical worry. The international community has officially recognized just how serious this is. The stakes are just so incredibly high. If a company has a data breach, you might lose some money. But in a humanitarian crisis, a data breach can lead to persecution, to violence, or worse.
So, what do you do if data is both absolutely essential and incredibly dangerous? How do aid organizations walk this tightrope? How do you use the power of tech while still holding on to that core principle? First, do no harm. Well, the first step is you have to be proactive. Before a single piece of data is even collected, organizations are supposed to conduct what's called a Data Protection Impact Assessment, or a DPIA. It's basically a process that forces them to think through the worst-case scenarios from the very beginning and build in protections from the ground up.
And that whole assessment is guided by a few core principles. Purpose limitation, for example, just means if you collect data to hand out blankets, you can't then turn around and use it to track migration patterns. Data minimization is just what it sounds like. Collect only what you absolutely need and nothing more. And of course, you only keep it as long as you have to, and you keep it locked down tight. But here's the most crucial point. This isn't just about a technical checklist or some policy document that sits on a shelf. For this to actually work, it requires a deep, fundamental shift in culture. The leadership has to believe in it, and the entire organization has to understand that protecting a person's data is just as vital as giving them food or clean water.
So let's look ahead. As technology keeps accelerating, this whole balancing act between helping and harming, it's only going to get more complicated and a lot more critical.
We're already seeing new challenges pop up. There's something called function creep. That's when data collected for one good reason slowly starts getting used for other, not-so-good reasons, like surveillance. You've got governments putting more and more pressure on aid groups to hand over their data. And even AI, with all its promise, can have hidden biases that might accidentally leave out the very people who need help the most.
Which really leaves us with this final, profound question. Technology is giving us this almost godlike power to see, to analyze, and to act. But in our rush to innovate, we have to make absolutely sure that our tools are serving our values